let's talk about cars. Specifically, the ones you probably drive. Toyotas, Hondas, the backbone of American roads. Suddenly, panic is sweeping the nation, with headlines warning that these Japanese giants might shut down their US factories and leave. The cause? President Trump's new tariffs threatening to upend the entire auto industry? For decades, Japanese automakers have built cars and communities across America, creating hundreds of thousands of jobs. Now, the fear is real. If Toyota and Honda pull out, it's not just about where your next Camry comes from, it's about the survival of entire towns. Buckle up. We're diving into the high-stakes gamble that could reshape the American economy. To truly understand the chaos that's now gripping the American auto industry, let's rewind to April 2025, a month that would change everything. It started with a flurry of breaking news alerts, headlines flashing across screens, and a sense of disbelief spreading through social media and newsrooms alike. That's when President Trump, in a move that stunned both allies and rivals, slapped a sweeping 25% tariff on all foreign-made cars and auto parts. The announcement was bold, dramatic, and instantly controversial, sending shockwaves through the global auto market and igniting fierce debate in Washington and beyond. The administration's stated goal was simple: force companies to build in America, using American parts and American workers. The promise was more jobs, more factories, and a revival of the country's manufacturing might. For a brief moment, hope surged in towns that had seen factories close and jobs disappear. But the reality of modern car manufacturing is far more complicated. Today's cars are assembled from thousands of parts sourced from dozens of countries. Even vehicles that roll off American assembly lines rely on a vast, intricate web of global suppliers. A single car might contain electronics from Japan, transmissions from Germany, and steel from South Korea, all coming together in a US factory. The tariffs didn't just target finished cars from overseas, they hit the very parts American factories depend on. Suddenly, even made in the USA cars became more expensive to build, and those costs were passed straight to consumers. Car prices soared, dealerships struggled to explain the hikes, and buyers found themselves priced out of the market. And it didn't stop there. The administration doubled down, imposing 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum, the backbone of car making. These metals are essential for every vehicle, from the frame to the engine. With raw material costs skyrocketing, building anything in America suddenly cost a fortune, squeezing profit margins and threatening jobs. The administration insisted, no tariff if you build it here. But the reality was far messier. Their own policies made it nearly impossible for automakers to avoid tariffs, no matter where they built or sourced their parts. The rules of the game kept changing, leaving companies scrambling to adapt. In the end, it became a self-inflicted wound, one that squeezed automakers from every direction. Executives faced impossible choices, workers feared for their jobs, and entire communities braced for the fallout. The storm that swept through the auto industry was, in every sense, a storm of Trump's own making. Ironically, the first casualties of these sweeping tariffs weren't foreign competitors, but American automakers themselves. The very companies the policy was supposed to protect, icons like GM, Ford, and Stellantis, were suddenly caught in the crossfire of a trade war they never asked for. For decades, these automakers had painstakingly built efficient cross-border supply chains, sourcing parts from Canada, Mexico, and beyond, to keep costs down and production humming. Now, almost overnight, those same parts faced crushing new taxes at the border, threatening to unravel years of careful planning and investment. GM, Ford, and Stellantis had built efficient supply chains across North America. Now, those parts faced crushing new taxes. The impact was immediate and severe. Assembly lines slowed, shipments were delayed, and the cost of doing business in America began to skyrocket. GM lost $1 billion in a single quarter, Stellantis braced for billions more in losses. Ford, too, warned of deep financial pain, as investors watched stock prices tumble and analysts slashed forecasts for the entire industry. Tariffs on steel and aluminum drove up costs for every car maker, foreign and domestic. Suddenly, the price of raw materials, everything from steel frames to aluminum panels, spiked, squeezing profit margins and forcing companies to rethink their entire manufacturing strategy. Companies faced a brutal choice: absorb the higher costs and watch profits evaporate, or pass them on to consumers in the form of higher prices, risking a sharp drop in sales and putting thousands of American jobs on the line. The policy meant to protect Detroit ended up hurting it most. Once bustling factories went quiet, and the city that once symbolized American industrial might now face a new era of uncertainty and decline. Industry leaders called it a disaster, warning that international rivals, who could source parts and materials from less expensive markets, were about to gain a confusing, unexpected advantage in the American market. The stage was set for a trade drama that would only get stranger, as American automakers struggled to adapt, and the global auto industry braced for even more turbulence ahead. Enter the great new trade deal with Japan, an agreement that was hailed by the White House as a major breakthrough for American industry and workers. The signing ceremony was full of smiles and handshakes, with both sides eager to show off what they called a win-win for the US and Japan. But beneath the surface, not everyone was celebrating. President Trump slashed tariffs on Japanese cars, dropping them from 25% to 15%. He stood at the podium, surrounded by American-made vehicles, and declared it a victory for American consumers and businesses. The administration argued that lower tariffs would mean cheaper cars for Americans and a stronger relationship with Japan. Wall Street certainly seemed to agree. The stock market surged on the news, with investors betting on increased trade and higher profits for automakers. But while the financial world cheered, the mood was very different on the factory floors across the Midwest and South. For thousands of American auto workers, the deal felt like a gut punch, a threat to their livelihoods and the future of U.S. manufacturing. The reality is, with tariffs now lower on finished Japanese cars, it's suddenly much cheaper for companies to build vehicles in Japan and ship them across the Pacific than to manufacture them here in the United States. Cargo ships loaded with Japanese cars are arriving at American ports in record numbers, while U.S. assembly lines face growing uncertainty. Here's the kicker. The new 15% tariff on Japanese cars is actually less than the 25% tariff that still applies to many of the parts U.S. factories need to build cars domestically. That means it's now more expensive for American companies to import the parts they need than it is for Japanese companies to simply ship over finished vehicles. The result? A perverse incentive for companies like Toyota and Honda to scale back their U.S. production, potentially closing or idling American plants, and instead, ramp up exports from Japan. For communities that depend on these factories, the threat is real and immediate. While there's been no official announcement of plant closures or layoffs yet, the economic logic is hard to ignore. Japanese automakers are now faced with a choice: keep investing in American jobs, or take advantage of the new math and shift more production overseas. For many American workers, the fear is that their jobs are suddenly less attractive to foreign companies. Industry analysts and executives have been quick to criticize the deal, calling it a bad deal that puts U.S. companies at a disadvantage in their own market. Headlines across the country echoed the same concern. American automakers are being squeezed, and the playing field is anything but level. In the end, this policy doesn't just lower prices for consumers, it rewards companies for moving jobs and production overseas. For American workers and communities, the so-called Great Deal with Japan is a reminder that not every win on paper translates to a win in real life. The stakes? Millions of American jobs. International automakers support 2.4 million U.S. jobs, from factory workers to local businesses. Towns like Georgetown, Kentucky depend on these plants for survival. If companies scale back or close, the economic fallout would devastate entire communities. The irony, a policy meant to protect American workers could make them the first to go. The ripple effect would hit steel, aluminum, logistics, and consumers. Fewer choices, higher prices. The entire auto ecosystem is threatened by a policy at war with itself. The dominoes are lined up, and the first is starting to fall. Trump's justification? Japan blocks U.S. cars. The reality? Japan eliminated tariffs on U.S. cars years ago. In 2024, Japan imported just 16,707 American vehicles, a drop in the bucket. The real barriers are practical. Japan drives on the left, but U.S. automakers rarely make right-hand drive models. American cars are also too big for Japan's narrow streets and tiny parking spaces. Japanese consumers want compact, efficient cars, something U.S. brands rarely offer. Add a reputation for poor reliability and minimal marketing, and it's no wonder American cars don't sell in Japan. It's not protectionism, it's a mismatch of products and markets. U.S. automakers never seriously tried to compete there. The world is watching and reacting. When the U.S. gave Japan a 15% tariff, the EU and South Korea demanded the same. Now America faces pressure to extend deals or risk new trade wars with allies. European automakers already hit hard are at a disadvantage compared to Japanese rivals. Korean brands like Hyundai and Kia, with big US investments, now face the same perverse incentives. Build at home, export to the US? The message to global business? US trade policy is unpredictable and punishes those who invest here. Why build factories in America if the rules can change overnight? The global ripples are spreading and the message is chaos. So where does this leave us? In the wreckage of a policy car crash. Toyota and Honda probably won't leave overnight, but the economic logic is shifting. Expect a slow decline, fewer expansions, more imports, and a gradual loss of American jobs. The promise of a manufacturing renaissance has become a hollow fantasy. American automakers are punished at home, while Japanese imports get a leg up. The casualties? American workers, communities, and consumers facing higher prices and fewer choices. Until this course is reversed, the American auto industry will be stuck in reverse, bracing for the next impact.